Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Kevork Almassian. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's live streaming. I appreciate you all, guys, whether you are watching us on YouTube or on Rumble. Recently, I came across Hassan Chami's account on Instagram and on Twitter or X. And he has been posting short format of videos explaining what's happening not only in Palestine, but also in the Middle East. And he has been debunking some of the myths about the Arab-Israeli conflict and also some of the bigger lies being told by the Israeli occupation forces. He was also on George Galloway's show. And with less than 100 posts, he already gained 27,200 followers. And I think that his content is very informative and he's making how we say this to the point. Like he's making a point with a very short videos, and I think during such times it's very important also to speak to the younger generation and to tell them what's happening. And I think he is doing a great job in that, and that's why I wanted to have him today, Hassan, on my channel. What a great studio, by the way, behind you. How are you doing? By the way, your voice is gone again. You have to check your volume, the settings of your microphone again. It seems that the settings has been changed. Um, uh, we have been testing this before the live streaming, and it was working just fine. And we will see maybe in the settings if you go audio and then microphone again, it could work. So, guys, it's very important to connect with people around the world, especially those who are creating content on social media platforms, to see what they say in these cases, and especially when it comes to the Palestinian case, and especially when it's by people who have roots from the Middle East. And because Hassan is a Lebanese American, by the way, and he was born in the United States with roots in Lebanon, he was a pharmacist and an entrepreneur. Recently, he joined this world of the social media platforms in order to educate the people what's happening around the world, and something that resonates with me or reminds me of Bassem Youssef. Bassem Youssef, the Egyptian comedian who was a surgeon, a heart surgeon, and he joined also he joined the comedy, let's say, word at the beginning, but now he has also become a political activist, and he participates in many of the podcasts trying to tell the people what's happening in his region. And especially it's coming from a person like Bassem Youssef is a liberal person, and he has so many enemies in the what they call the Islamic world, and the Islamists hate him, but he's telling the truth about this case of Palestine and Israel, and I think that's very important. And Hassan also recently decided that he wants to post content on social media platforms and tell the people what's happening in Palestine, because Lebanon was also a victim of the Israeli occupation forces. For those who do not know, in 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon and occupied southern Lebanon, and they reached to Beirut. And there were so many clashes inside Lebanon, and this was the spawn of also what we say the Hezbollah back then. And also, Syrian side was present in Lebanon back then, and they had their battles with the Israeli occupation forces, something that the historians must always remind to the viewers in order to put this conflict into proper context. And nowadays, there is much talk also about Hezbollah and its role in the region, and there are so many people also in the what they call the pro-Palestine community. I will bring just Hassan to the chat. Let's see if we can hear him. Unfortunately, we cannot hear you yet, my friend. Although there is something, it seems that it's from the microphone, because I can hear like tick, 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 like there is a something like that, and then it misses again the volume. Do you guys hear? No, it was working fine, not working now. Okay. Um, I cannot hear you. You have to maybe check the settings now in the software, in the audio, the microphone, if it's changed again, because it was just working fine before the. By the way, there is some tick tick happening in my ears. So
Testing.
yeah, now test test. I can hear you.
So this is working, but it's from my camera. It's not from my microphone. The microphone was working fine though.
No worries. As long as we can hear you now, that's great.
All right. Is the audio clear?
It's audio clear, yes. And the
Okay.
studio behind you looks great. How are you doing, Hassan?
I'm great. How you doing?
I'm good, good. So you studied pharmacy and you also became an entrepreneur, but you also decided to join the social media world and post political content. I mean, that's a big jump, right? Like some people get motivated, some people feel like they have a duty to do this. How was it? How was this transition for you?
It was easy. I mean, being Lebanese, being from South Lebanon, and dealing with and experiencing, a lot of the trauma and struggles of, my parents and my grandparents, and understanding what they came from, and understanding the history of Lebanon and Israel. It's a part of us. So this is just a continuation, and I feel like a lot of Lebanese in America are very well versed with what's going on overseas, and so it was a very easy transition.
It's in our conscious, as we say, and we grew up with the stories of what happened in the region, and we lived these experiences. Some people do probably find it hard to understand it, but when you live in Lebanon, for example, or in Syria or in Palestine, even if you leave your country and you go to the States or you go to Europe, you bring with you all these memories and the accumulated experiences that you have gained during this time of your stay in the region, and you want to have a positive impact on what's happening in our region, and especially for your people. Like you genuinely want to improve the situation for them as well, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we plant the seed in our children's heart as well, so they know what's going on, so they're well versed. So we don't want the generations after us to forget.
Exactly. I think reminding these issues is very important for the younger generation in from our countries and also in the United States. I mean, when I was preparing this live streaming with you, the first question that came to my mind: are you guys okay in the United States with the First Amendment and the rights that you guys have there? And all of a sudden, I see that there is some serious police brutality is happening. What's happening in the American campuses?
Yeah, I mean, we're okay for now, but we see a lot of hypocrisy with the politicians. So with American campuses, you're seeing a lot of the youth standing up and doing encampments because they're standing up against genocide. And the college youth actually make up a huge portion of the American youth, and so they control public opinion. And you see, like
Yes.
what we see, if you look back into the Vietnam War, the encampments that happen on campuses actually influence politics, influence the war in itself. So I think the politicians are afraid that this is going to happen again. As you see, Benjamin Netanyahu is very fearful of that with his new speeches and rhetoric right now. But it's also pointing out the hypocrisy of politicians. For example, Greg Abbott in Texas in 2019, he has a video that he's parading around signing a bill for free speech to protect
Yes.
free speech, and now he's saying we
Yeah.
should expel these students and arrest them. So what is it? Do we have free speech, or is it just when it supports your narrative?
Man, how many people got exposed after this Palestine case? If you remember when the so-called pandemic hit and all these conservatives were preaching about free speech and against government tyranny, and they were like protesting against the government suppression of speech and everything, and we're for free speech. And all of a sudden, when the Palestine came, like as if they found their own Slava Ukraine thing, and
Absolutely.
now you see they're trying to not only to discredit, but calling someone an anti-Semite is a very, very serious allegation. And when you accuse an entire generation of school goers or these protesters demonstrations in the universities, this is a serious allegation against students and smearing. I mean, how is it working still, this anti-Semitism thing in the United States? Is it does it have a serious impact?
It had a serious impact up until October 7th. right? So now
Mm.
they're blaming Jews to be anti-Semites, right? So if you go to the campuses, there's a bunch of Jewish people who are protesting against Israel and Zionism. You go to New York, there's a Jewish Voice for Peace, and they're
Yes.
standing up against Israel and
Mm.
Zionism. So what they've done is, when you just point your finger and say anti-Semite, anti-Semite, you just water it down. It means nothing anymore. It's like somebody calling you a racist when you're really not a racist. It's the same thing. So I think they've actually shot themselves in the foot, and there's no more value in what the term anti-Semite even means. They've weaponized it for such a long time, which was wrong, but now people see right through it.
Yeah. Do you know how many times I got called in the past like a racist and right wing and all these things because I had a different opinion about the pandemic, for example, because I said, guys, about the refugee crisis. Why don't we solve the root cause of the refugee crisis? Why do you think we have refugee crisis? Because of the wars. And then you become a right winger. And now when the Palestine case happened, all of a sudden I'm getting called an Antifa and I'm getting called the radical left. It's like, guys,
Same here.
What is this?
Same here. Even with the progressive agenda in America. So I'm not as liberal as many youth are in America. I have a conservative mindset. I hold on to conservative family values, and so when I fight against a progressive agenda, people say, "Oh, you're right wing, you're Republican, you're a sellout." Now all of a sudden, the right is telling me, "Oh, you're a liberal. You're chanting progressive terms." Make up your mind. Which one are we? I think we're in the middle.
Yeah, but they are trying to divert the conversation. Like I saw Matt Walsh. He's a conservative figure from the Daily Wire, and he just posted a video, basically trying to paint the pro-Palestine movement now as a BLM repackaged. And of course, there is a considerable number of people are from the left-wing people in these demonstrations, but they're trying to make this look like it's a left-wing against right-wing thing, and that's not the case. That's not the core of the issue. This is about an occupation, and this is about an onslaught happening against the Palestinians. So unless we really address the core of the issue, everything else they are trying to do is just to try to divert the conversation into different direction in order for the real cause and the real issue to be lost among this conversation. And this is just a divide and conquer tactic from the left, from the right, from the center. They're all doing the same thing nowadays in the United States. And to be honest with you, I see that for a very long time, I haven't seen the US political class as terrified as today, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, any move they make right now, they're exposing themselves. I mean, what's that? Because, like you said, there's conservatives on the right, say the Muslims of America, very conservative, who are pro-Palestine, and then you got the liberal youth of universities who are pro-Palestine. You got the Jewish Voice for Peace, pro-Palestine. So it's not a right or left issue; it's genocide. It's about genocide. And so what's happening is politicians are exposing themselves. Just like I mentioned, Greg Abbott and many others are trying to shut down protests, but they were just advocating for free speech a few years ago during COVID. Which one is it, right? So
Yeah.
I think a lot of them don't know how to calculate their next step, and they're shooting themselves in the foot. And like you said, like they're saying this is BLM and Antifa. It's out, like if you really dig deep into the funding of a lot of these social justice movements, the same people that were pushing for that are funding things on the right as well, and they just collided. It's imploding within.
Exactly. And to be honest, it's also happening here now in Berlin. So many of people that I know, they finish their jobs, and what they do basically, they buy some tea, for example, and they make hot tea for the demonstrations, and they bring them some food because there are also tents in front of the parliament here in Berlin, and everybody is just trying to do something. And increasing number of people that I see also in Berlin, like Germany, it's a very big taboo, right? Like, I mean, you being a pro-Palestine, so it's like, do you hate the Jews? This is what the government is basically saying here. Like, if you're for Palestine, then you are an anti-Semite, right? And then you see increasing number of Germans wearing the keffiyeh without fear. You see in the transportation, in the public transportation, you see in the trains, you see everywhere. People are wearing the keffiyeh. And this is a funny story I just want to say now. I created some account for drop shipping, And I said, okay, so let me do sell some kefir on my YouTube channel. So people who want to buy kefir, they can buy it through my YouTube channel. And YouTube denied and disapproved my demand to sell the kefir because they say it's a manipulative campaign for selling political slogans. So they didn't allow me to add a drop shopping to my YouTube channel just to sell a kefir on my YouTube channel. They're trying everything in
That's
their
another form of
capacity.
censorship.
Of
That's another
course.
form of censorship. They're trying to control it all over. But you know what? They can't control it. Public opinion across the world has shifted, especially in America. Public opinion has shifted. We can thank social media for that. Like I was never that active on social media. I think I reactivated my Instagram account for the first time in 6 years last year. And I was just making a few posts, but ever since October 7th, I started posting it. These videos are catching traction because people around the world now want to be educated on what is the Israeli-Palestinian issue. It's not Israel versus Hamas. It's always been Israel versus Palestine. The same way it was Israel versus Lebanon for those 22 years or whatnot. It's Israel versus Palestine. They try to frame it as an Israel versus Hamas war. That's not the case. And I think the world is waking up, and we finally see the public opinion shifting. And we can. You're also going to see American politicians start pushing for a two-state solution soon because they realize this idea of not giving Palestine a state is no longer tangible. Like they have to offer them a state. Now, I'm not saying I support a two-state solution, but you're going to start seeing American politicians pushing for that.
Yeah, here also in Europe, they're pushing for two-state solution, but I don't see that this is a viable option, especially after the October 7. It has become too fictitious, in my opinion, to push for a two-state solution after all these massacres that happened in the Gaza Strip. Two-state solution, in my opinion, I could be wrong, could be a transitional period into a one-state solution where everyone lives under one constitution and equal rights. Regardless of your religion, regardless of your ethnicity, everybody has to live with dignity and with full rights. And if somebody disapproves that and thinks that he is superior to the other religions and sects, then that's his and her problem and not the problem of the people of the region, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, two-state solution, all these so-called agreements of the past between Israel and Palestine, whether it's the Oslo Accords or whatnot, it's always been a distraction just to delay the Palestinian state. And if you pay attention to a lot of Israeli politicians, you'll know, they've said it themselves. They were never going to give Palestine a state. But yeah, it would have to be a transition where people can live, can coexist together.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays, when I follow the demonstrations, this is a question that I would like to more dig in. Like you have roots in Lebanon, right? Of course, you have in your conscience this your parents and everyone was telling you what happened in Lebanon, in Palestine. You experienced it, but there are people who were born as an American, let's say white American, or from Britain, or from some European countries, or any other ethnicity in the United States. They were born there. They have no connection with the Middle East, but increasing number of Americans are becoming sympathetic with the Palestinians. The media is in the hands of the American establishment. The Zionists have strong grip over the media. But despite that, increasing number of Americans are supporting Palestine. How do you explain it since you live there?
I think it's social media, it's also podcasting. So if you go back to COVID, like I compare our world right now, pre-COVID, post-COVID. It's two different worlds. So when you see a guy like Joe Rogan become so popular, right? Signed $100 million contract with Spotify, the most watched podcast, and he went against the narrative during COVID and was bringing on all these guys who were censored and was interviewing these doctors, right? This started this new trend where people were talking. So you even got people like Candace Owens, who's coming out, who works for the Daily Wire. But the Zionists control the mainstream media, but they don't control YouTube to an extent, but they don't control social media to where they have no control over everyone posting what they want to post. They have no control over my posts unless they want to censor me, which they've tried. But I think when you have hundreds of millions of people posting videos and resharing TikTok videos, you have no control over that. And I think that is what helps shift the public opinion.
Yeah, and now they are trying to ban TikTok as well. They're not trying to ban it. They're trying to resell it to Americans so that they have a full control over it.
So Trump used to say, China's taking our information.
Yeah.
The left used to laugh at them and say, no, we can't get rid of TikTok. Then the Zionists came up and said, listen, if you go on TikTok, public opinion on TikTok is pro-Palestinian. all the
Yeah.
videos are pro-Palestine. It's shifting public opinion. Then all of a sudden they come back with this: China's taking our information, is spying on U.S. citizens. We need to get rid of TikTok. We know exactly why they're trying to get rid of TikTok,
Yeah.
to control public opinion.
Man, I wanted also to ask you, like, since you mentioned Candace Owens, Candace, she left, but you have Ben Shapiro, who apparently has more allegiance and loyalty to Israel than to the United States. It's very clear. But then you have personality like Jordan Peterson, for example. He's Canadian, but he has a massive influence over the world. But he has become more hysterical after the October 7, blocking people left and right, including myself. Although I'm very, very respectful with people. I don't like attack or smear people. I just criticize a point, for example. But it seems to me that it's more dangerous to be pro-Palestine when you're a conservative to the establishment than when you are a left wing, because they're trying to paint it as like, this is an Antifa. But when you have a personality like Candace Owens or Alex Jones or libertarian, for example, like Joe Rogan, when they say this is a genocide, it's becoming more hurtful for their narrative compared to when other personalities on the left speak about this case.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And a lot of these guys like Jordan Peterson, he's exposed himself as well. You got to fund them. You got to follow the money trail. It's all about who's funding these people. Where they're getting their paychecks from. It is clear that Ben Shapiro is Israel first, not America
yes,
first.
100%.
It is clear, and I give so much props for Candace Owens. As a right-wing conservative who aligned with the right wing for such a long time. You can tell she's a true journalist who's always trying to seek truth. We don't have to agree with everything, even though me personally, I agree with a lot that she's done in the past. But if you see her stance now and working for the Daily Wire and having the courage to stand up and say, no, this is my job. I'm going to investigate this and spread the truth. I have so much respect for people like that. People, that we don't have to agree on everything, but you can see their sincerity in what they're trying to do, while others like Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson are just trying to keep their employers happy so they can continue to make their money. Because you cannot convince me a guy like Jordan Peterson, a manager, truly believes that Israel's in the right.
Yes,
he's not a dumb guy. He's an intelligent person. You can't.
Of course. I mean, I'm 100% sure that he watched footage from Gaza and he saw what's happening there, and deep inside his heart, I'm also sure that he doesn't feel now sympathy to the Palestinian people. Otherwise, at least what he would have done is to say, I don't support the killing, at least in the Gaza Strip. After he tweeted that, give them hell, Netanyahu, and what happened now in the Gaza Strip, at least he would have made one statement, because all these people during the Corona times who argued against the restrictions and said, oh, it hurts the kids. Of course it hurts the kids. I understand that. I was also against that. But now that kids are being murdered with thousands of them in the Gaza Strip, none of them are using the same analogy and the same argument to protect these children in the Gaza Strip. Ceasefire, you're pro-Hamas. And when you point out to what's happening in Gaza, you get blocked by them. And I feel sad because I'm very open about this. I was once in a dark place. Like any man passes through circles. And at some point, I was in a dark place. And Jordan Peterson's lectures about career, masculinity, and how to be consistent with what you're doing and discipline, etc. It helped me. These teachings helped me. And that's why I wanted to go and attend one of his events. And I have given him a soap from Aleppo. It's called the Aleppo soap, which is a very traditional historic soap from Aleppo. And yes, and I told him the story when I met him, that this soap was used by Queen Zenobia and Queen Cleopatra of Egypt, for example. And this has a really historical meaning behind it. I also wanted to, back then, because he interviewed Netanyahu, I wanted to also give him this gift, because we in Syria, we in Lebanon, we in Palestine, we have history, we have civilization, we have lots of value in our civilization. I wanted to give him something that has a meaning, right? So he also opens his eyes probably on Syria. He says, oh, there's also a country called Syria. Maybe I dig in, maybe I learn something about it. So He said, "Oh, you look very sharp, you look very good, and etc." with my wife, and then he blocked me on on Twitter from the first comment that I pointed him, bro. Like it's like Israel has been killing thousands of kids, you know,
No,
crazy.
I was a huge Jordan Peterson fan. I think he really spoke to masculinity, to help boys understand their identity. He brought out a lot of stats and data, and he showed how this new liberal agenda, where it's pushing Western feminism and it's pushing boys to the side, how it's affecting society. So I was a big Jordan Peterson fan, but as soon as he did the Netanyahu interview, that's where the red flag was. And then I started to watch him carefully after that, and I was like, this guy's a complete sellout. He lost all credibility. You know,
Exactly.
even if he gives a good speech right now about masculinity or psychology, I can't listen to him. You know,
No.
who's another guy, you know, who just exposed himself as well? And if you pay attention to him over the years, you can see his bias towards Iran. It's PBD, Patrick Bet-David, but on Piers Morgan, he's complaining about Ukraine. Oh, but Israel what? It's the same thing. What do you mean? And you left a great comment. You know, I saw your response, and like he exposed himself. Come on.
Do you know what the funny thing about that comment? I really wrote it like in length, very long comment. And the second day, the PBD official account on X, on Twitter, mistakenly put like on my comment because they were watching the comments on Patrick Bet-David's page. I wanted to do a screenshot very fast, but he took it out.
No, I hope he invites you to a show one day just so you can school him as well. Look, PBD, as he tries to paint himself as this like independent media network, you know, to try to find truth. He supports Tucker Carlson, supports Joe Rogan. But when Bassem Youssef went on, Bassem Youssef was so respectful.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you watched it. And Adam was on his show making up all these lies about beheaded babies and cutting off women's breasts. And he watched these videos. These videos don't exist. And PBD never stopped him once. Or they never came out and said, hey, you know what? We fact checked. This isn't true. He let Adam, the Zionists, go on a rant just to keep pushing this false narrative that the IDF and the Mossad wants you to push, and he didn't stop him at all. And I was like, man, this guy's exposing himself just like the rest.
You know what Adam did? I also left a long comment when I watched that segment. What Adam did basically, he knows very, very well that Bassem Youssef was very tired and he came from Dubai just recently. He just arrived to Miami and he was very, very tired. Apparently, he didn't prepare for the podcast. And Adam knows that Bassem is a nerd and he prepares for that. And so he knew that Bassem was not really well prepared for that podcast. However, still Bassem was raising some logical and very calm-headed arguments. So what Adam basically did, he heated up the conversation to insult Bassem Youssef a few times so that Bassem goes down with the conversation and tries to smear him again. So he wanted for the conversation to be heated up and also emotional or sensational. So Bassem Youssef loses his temper and loses the argument. But Bassem was very, very clever. And he's a very, very cool-headed person. I salute him for what he does, especially that Bassem Youssef is not an Islamist. And he's hated by the Islamists, and you cannot really paint him as an Islamist or a Hamas sympathizer or this and that. He actually escaped.
That's why he's a good spokesperson for this case, because he's not an Islamist. He doesn't side with that. He says he doesn't like Hamas, and so how are you going to debunk his arguments? You know, it's very clear what Adam was trying to do, but I keep putting my focus on PBD because he's in charge. And the fact that he didn't step in, the fact that he didn't stop it, the fact that he never came out later on and said, hey, this was wrong.
No, Patrick Bet-David's arguments was very, I would say, very childish. He couldn't even finish his arguments in his last video when he posted about Iran. And he cannot make a point. He's just a businessman. And when you're a businessman and you make a huge amount of profits, good for you, bravo, you're a successful person, but in your field. It doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden geopolitical expert and you can speak about every other case. His case is like, oh, I'm on Team America, and because China is a competitor to the United States and they're allies with Iran, then I have to be anti-Iran. What are you talking about? It's like, what kind of childish argument is that? And this is a point about Iran, because I wanted also to speak about Iran with you. And the pro-Palestine community is very diverse, and there's so many people left, right, in the middle. They are Islamists, they are seculars, they are progressives, there's this and that, right? I just want to focus on one particular segment of this pro-Palestine community, those who are dividing the pro-Palestine community with a type of rhetoric that is very, in my opinion, damaging. And they are trying to say that Iran is the enemy of the Islamic Ummah. And they portray Iran as, and they say tacitly Iran is allied with Israel. And Netanyahu was in a deep trouble because of the atrocities he's committing in Gaza. And now Iran struck Israel. So now he shifted the attention from the atrocities in Gaza into another conflict. So they say that this was all a theater. And this is all coming from Muslim Brotherhood type, pro-Qatari people, pro-Saudi people, and also the Emirati. I would also argue that they're doing this and that. And you also see that this is very damaging, right? Today I saw a tweet for Lebanese guy. His name is Mohammed Al-Sahili, and he works for Mada Network Lebanon. And you saw because somebody was carrying a Hezbollah flag, and he says that I support pro-Palestine protests on American campuses, but raising Hezbollah's flag is disgusting and insulting to thousands of Lebanese and Syrians who are fighting for political emancipation. Hezbollah will never be a liberation movement. Who liberated Lebanon in year 2000 and 2006?
America. No, look, this smear campaign coming out of Saudi and the Emirates and Qatar. This is a Wahhabi-funded, it's the Wahhabi ideology that is embedded the Zionist. It's a funded smear campaign. And you've seen it back in January when the Shias were getting, first of all, whether you're Shia, Sunni, Christian, atheist, it doesn't matter. We're all equals in humanity. We can have our different beliefs. It does not matter. We're all, I'm a Shia, and Imam Ali, the successor of the Prophet, said, you're either my brother in faith or my equal in humanity. So yes, either way, you have to respect everybody. But when the Shia start to get a lot of recognition for their stance against Palestine, and a lot of Sunni youth, even in my DMs, were confused, and they were asking me, I didn't know the Shia stand up for Palestine this way. And then a lot of the non-Muslims were saying the Shia nations are standing up for Palestine. You've seen a campaign across social media where they started to bring up the Syrian conflict.
Yes.
It's very sensitive, and a conflict that had some of the most and worst propaganda in our times.
Yes.
And you're, as a Syrian, you should know. And then, so what it starts to divide the Ummah again. And then after the Iranian attack, boom, you saw that campaign again, trying to divide the Shias and the Sunnis. And you know what? It's disgusting. And anyone, whether you're Muslim or not, anyone who falls in that trap, you're just working for the Zionists. So I called it out. You saw it. I called it out on my Twitter. You know, I said, like, the fact that it's one thing like there's many speakers out there who do not call for Muslim unity and they claim to be Muslim. The scholars I follow, the people I'm around, the mosques I attend, my entire life always speak about Islamic unity, because Islamic unity is needed in the Middle East to preserve these countries and to protect these countries against imperialism.
Of course.
But when you see the other nations like Saudi Arabia, who's in bed with America and Israel and Qatar and whatnot, who are funding when they hijacked and funded the Syrian revolution, and they're funding the smear campaign against Iran right now during this Palestinian-Israeli war, they're all embedded with the Zionists.
I will go with them and accept their narrative, and that is Iran is secretly an ally with Israel, and they are conspiring against the Muslim Ummah. I will go with them. But if that is the case, then show us your support for the Palestinians. Then why don't you support? Like, if you say that the Iranians are hijacking the Palestinian cause, then why do you allow Iran to hijack the Palestinian cause? Why don't you support the Palestinian cause? You are the one normalizing relations with Israel, right?
Exactly. You're normalizing relations with Israel, then you're blaming Iran for it. It's like,
I mean, it's called the Arab-Israeli conflict, right? It's not the Persian-Israeli conflict. It's not the Iranian-Israeli conflict. It's Arab-Israeli conflict. But I'm sorry, but Egyptians withdrew from the conflict after the Camp David Accords. The Jordanians weren't even part of the conflict for a long time. Syria, they destroyed half of it because they were supporting the Palestinians. You know from Lebanon that
Can you
it's
say that one more
divided.
time? Can you say
Yeah,
that one more time? Why they
Syria.
why they destroy Syria?
They destroyed Syria because they were giving tangible support for the Palestinians, and they were sending weapons also to Hezbollah, and Hezbollah was delivering it to Gaza.
And when you say they destroyed Syria, what years are you talking about?
After 2011.
And are you Syrian?
Yes, I am Syrian.
Oh, good. Just making sure.
Yeah. Because I truly believe that the reason why they funded all these jihadists in Syria was to neutralize any threat against Israel. This was the main reason why they funded, and with billions of dollars, right? Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, CIA, everybody was involved in this, including the Mossad, of course. And Israel has conducted hundreds of airstrikes against Syria and Syrian army positions, but zero strikes against the so-called rebels. And when the rebels occupied the borders with Israel, what they did basically, they went and received medical treatment in the Golan Heights hospitals, and they received cash money from the Netanyahu government, and they came back to Syria to fight against the Syrian army.
Kevork, this is Iranian propaganda. Come on, what are you saying? This is Iranian propaganda. It was the Shia militias that went into Syria and slaughtered everyone. Because they don't like saying that.
Yeah, this is how they speak, really. And this is what Al Jazeera did. Today I was on a podcast with an Indian friend. Al Jazeera played an instrumental role in spreading this belief that the Shia militias came to Syria to slaughter the Syrian people, so now we have to hate the Shia people. They don't say that over 120,000 multinational jihadists came all from all around the world, from Chechnya, from Xinjiang to Syria, to fight the first international brigade that they formed in Syria was in November 2011. So around 6 months after what the Syrian revolution started, and they were fighting with the so-called Free Syrian Army. There was no Jabhat Nusra, there was no ISIS, etc., etc. And I've been documenting these cases in length. I mean, I'm tired about this, but what I see in this case is when George Galloway won the elections recently, and some of the pro-Palestine people were attacking George Galloway, and they were saying, oh, this is not a victory because he's a pro-Assad. You know, it's like, I mean, of course he's a pro-Assad. What do you expect him to be? Like, to be pro-ISIS, pro-Nusra, pro-America, pro-CIA. I mean, who gave all these weapons to these so-called rebels in Syria? And this is something that hurts me because Syria, in my opinion, didn't receive justice. And there is so much BS about Syria, so much Syrians have given so much to the Palestinian cause, from their blood, from their money, from their weapons, from everything. But you have some people, influential ones, living in London, being on Piers Morgan's show, and they are very vocal about, we want to remove this infidel Assad from power because he's protecting Israel. What they do is basically, actually, they're helping Israel by trying to destroy Syria.
100%. And you know what? Another question you got to ask these guys: if these guys were if these jihadists cared so much their enemies, the Zionists, why haven't they ever gone to Israel? Why'd they go to Syria?
This is another real question. I mean, I would definitely not want for this Chechen and Uzbeki and Tajiki and Turkmenistani and Saudi and Egyptian and the tens of nationalities that came to Syria to fight against us. I don't want them to go to Palestine or against Israel. But this is a serious question. Where are they now from Palestine? Why don't they say we want to wage a jihad against Israel when Israel is committing all these atrocities, while they want to go out to Moscow and kill 160 people in Moscow? So who is moving the chessboard here of ISIS?
100%. Yeah, let's make that clear. We don't want them as our allies in Palestine, but it's a good question to ask. Where are you now?
I mean, sorry, fuck ISIS. If ISIS wants to liberate Palestine, I would definitely not want them to liberate Palestine. But where are you? You are still in Syria, and you have forces in Syria. And,
where are they in Syria right now?
In the deserts. They're just killing Syrian soldiers. Last week, they killed around 30 Palestinian fighters in Syria, because in Syria you have Palestinian factions in the Syrian army called Liwa al-Quds, so Al-Quds Brigade, and they ambushed the bus carrying Palestinian fighters and they slaughtered them all. So just like, this is a serious question. They just murdered and slaughtered Palestinian fighters in Syria, but they don't fight against Israel. The only time they fired, probably by mistake, against Israel, this was in 2017 or 16, because they were occupying some parts near the Golan. The defense minister of Israel said that ISIS officially apologized from us for firing a bullet on Israel. They never fired.
It was probably friendly fire.
And the former head of Mossad, he acknowledged on Al Jazeera that they gave medical treatment to Al-Qaeda fighters. He was with Mahdi Hassan, which I dislike him, but
interview.
yeah, I dislike him, but that was a good one. Yeah,
we're on the same page. Yeah, me and you are on the same wavelength.
I dislike him, but that was a really good trap for him. And then he asked him, so if you treat Qaeda fighters, because wounded Qaeda fighters, for humanitarian reasons, would you also give medical treatment to Hezbollah fighters? No, Hezbollah, we do not give them.
He tried to make it a humanitarian thing. Oh, we have to treat them. It's a humanitarian issue. Okay, would you treat the other guys? No, they're our enemies. Oh, these guys aren't your enemies, huh?
He said, because according to my memory, they never attacked Israel before. This is what he said exactly on Al Jazeera, and this was so funny. Hassan, this was
one by one, and the dominoes will fall. We should do this again in more depth.
Yes.
You know, I know
we will definitely do that.
This is a last minute thing, but we should definitely do this. Thank you so much for inviting me on your show. You've done great work.
It was really a pleasure. Guys, it goes without saying that his Instagram account, Hassan's Instagram account, is in the description below. Hit him a follow, because he's posting very interesting and informative videos there. Shorter formats. It's really important to show support to him as well. Hassan, thank you so much. I know you have also other commitments. It was really nice talking with you. Guys, this was the last live streaming of this week. It's Friday, so we start the weekend. I will come back to you on Monday, 5 p.m. Central European Time. 11 a.m. Eastern American Time. Peace be upon you, upon your families. Salam.
Salam.